Welcome to Evo's Car of the Year 2019. Six cars tested over 5 days on some extraordinary roads in southern Spain, and also on the full-length circuit at the legendary and, in places, quite scary Ascari Race Resort. This, as they say, should be quite good. We chose just 6 cars this year because we wanted to keep it relatively simple, and also we wanted to give each car our full and complete attention. And the range of cars really was quite something. I mean, it's not often that we get to compare a car like the BMW engined Morgan Plus 6 on the same piece of road as a 70 grand hyper-focused hot hatch like the Megane RS Trophy R, or a 200 grand Mercedes-AMG GTR Pro. But that's the beauty of eCoty, its range. In the bright yellow corner, we also invited the outrageously rapid Mercedes-AMG A45S, and in the blue corner, the magnificently unhinged Jaguar XE Project 8, seen here in slightly more sensible touring specification, which brings 4 seats rather than just 2. And then, of course, there was the all-new Cayman GT4. Well, I mean, we couldn't not have a Porsche eCoty, could we?
I think there is a lot of expectation on the Cayman GT4. Its predecessor, the 981 GT4, was our car of the year in 2015. And this car has so many of the elements that we look for in a driver's car, whether it's the naturally aspirated engine, manual gearbox, compact footprint, relatively lightweight. There's everything to suggest that it's going to do really well, and so far, yeah, it's impressing everybody.
I've done a mile or 2 in GT4s already this year. And it's so special, this car. I think this is one of the best value, high performance cars on sale at the moment, if not ever. And there are just so many reasons why it's such a lovely thing. For starters, it looks absolutely beautiful in the flesh. This dark blue is perhaps not its best colour, but who cares? The shape, the styling, the detailing within the styling, it's just sensational. And hard as it may be to believe, I actually think it drives quite a lot better than it looks. This 992 developed 4-litre engine. Don't worry about it, it's just fine. It's just brilliant, in fact.
Two hot hatches this year on eCoty, the Megane Trophy R and the AMG A45S. The Trophy R is the third of 3 hardcore Meganes that Renault Sport have built, and this one's got a bit of a reputation with it for its price tag, which I think is a distraction. So it comes with the carbon brakes and the carbon wheels, but as a whole package, this car has just been amazing on track here at Ascari. But when you find the right roads down here in southern Spain, it just absolutely clicks. It's a very, very extreme hot hatch, but it just works. The steering, the brakes, the suspension, which can be very tough and a bit harsh on normal roads, but when you're really up on its performance, it's a great thing. And in contrast, we've got the A45S. That's also got a bit of baggage because people are thinking of its headline power figure of 415 horsepower, but really that's just part of a whole package. The first time I got out of it, it was saying to the guys, it just felt like an Evo 6. It's so supple where you expect it to be quite harsh, and it just flows down the road, and the way it just sort of carries so much speed, but it gives you so much confidence back. And when you take in consideration that the previous A45 was an absolute dog of a car, for them to get this far with this in such a short space of time is clearly remarkable. There's two fantastic hot hatches, two very different hot hatches, but great to have them here this year.
So I think the A45 AMG S might just be the biggest surprise of eCoty so far. And the thing is, it was coming from quite a low place given the previous model. But the A35, the excellent A35, showed just how much potential there is in the new A-Class. And the A45, particularly in S trim, where you get all the aero bits, pretty much everything in this car is standard. There are no options. I love it. I absolutely love it, I have to say. The only thing I'm not quite sure about is the gearbox. I still wish it was a bit snappier, considering it's a dual clutch. The dual clutch in the GTR Pro works beautifully, instantly. There's still just a little bit of a delay in the A45 shift, but look, this is a proper senior, very, very rapid hot hatch. Seriously impressed by the A45 AMG S. Right, let's go and try something else. £70,000 for a Renault Sport Megane. But that's what this thing costs. Okay, it's got very expensive carbon wheels on it. It's got very expensive carbon ceramic brakes on it. We've not been overly impressed by the Renault on the road just because it's so full on. The ride is just unbelievably stiff on the road. Too stiff. But this is where it should deliver on the track, because it's utterly focused on going as fast as possible on the track, this car. Now, I have to be honest, the Renault is pretty monster on the track. It almost feels like a racing car with number plates on it. Really nice pin steering, good throttle response, fabulous brakes, really, really good brakes, great balance as well. On, near the limit, beyond the limit. It just feels absolutely at home on the track, this car.
I think having a Morgan in eCoty is probably a surprise to quite a lot of people. I think when we were coming up with the list of cars to include, it was almost a surprise to us, but I think certainly for me, one of the things is a recurring theme is you want a car that makes you think and doesn't just smash down the road and is impervious to bumps and has a bit of character about it and forces you to drive it. And the Morgan, of all the cars here, is actually the one that does that. It's got some character about it and some individuality about it. It's got a fantastic engine. So it's a proper sports car, but very much, as the body suggests, very much in an old school mould. And I think it's quite a thought-provoking car. I think it's important that we have these sorts of cars at eCoty. And I personally, I'm always smiling when I'm driving it. I'm not sure whether it's always doing exactly what I want it to do, but I don't know, it's a bit of a breath of fresh air, I think. I think the strange thing, that car being, or the Morgan being based on a Z4 and Supra, two cars that have dominated the sort of modern car landscape this year, I don't know that okay, they may have done certain things in a more conventional or slightly more polished way, but I don't know that they would have commended themselves to eCoty in the way that this car has, because they're a bit conventional and kind of feel like you've driven those sorts of cars before. They never quite hit the heights that we would expect of eCoty. And although we're finding that the Morgan certainly has some flaws, I think it more than compensates for those in the way it goes about what it does. And I just, every time I look at the car, it makes me smile. So I think that's an important part of what makes a great sports car.
It is a proper weapon, this car. It's not just another Jag with the supercharged V8 engine in it. The suspension in this thing is so much more trick than I think pretty much any road car they've ever produced, short of perhaps the XJ220. All the rubbery bits, or most of the pretty much all the rubbery bits in the suspension, they've just taken those out. It's just about rose jointed suspension, and it feels it the moment you get moving. There's just this connected, super stiff, sorted feel to the Project 8. It doesn't feel like any other Jaguar I've ever driven, because it isn't. And it is ruddy quick in a straight line as well. And even though it's four-wheel drive, it will do the big drift.
Yeah, I mean, the Project 8's not as aggressive as the track pack car, but it still looks fantastic. I mean, the other day I walked up to it in the petrol station, and just, even among all the amazing cars we have here, it's got real personality and real aggression. I think the way the Project 8 sounds is probably the best this V8, supercharged V8 has sounded.
It just feels like your right foot is connected directly to each of the drive shafts, particularly the rear drive shafts. The steering has this lovely, super precise, sharp edge to it. It almost feels like a racing car steering, actually, in the Project 8. I can't calm down in it though, because it's just a lovely, lovely thing. I know it costs £150,000, which is a bit nuts. And I know they're having a little bit of struggle selling them all, but look, if you are out there and you want something highly unusual, highly entertaining, that's really, really naughty at its core, Project 8.
So the AMG GTR Pro, we've had GTRs on Car of the Year before now, but they never quite come together as you hope they do, or they should. And this one, I think they nailed it with this one. It's a fairly sophisticated car in terms of the equipment and all the tech that's in it, but at heart it's a basic car. It's front engine, rear wheel drive. It's a meat and potatoes car. It brings the meat and you've got to bring the potatoes, because it's a pretty quick car. It does pretty well on the road, the ride's pretty good. The performance feels fantastic, but it's got loads of grip as well. So you can drive it within itself and it's still quite a thrill. The engine is pretty special, it's twin turbo, but you never really sense the turbocharging. It just feels like a really big, beefy engine. And that helps you exploit the car as well. Inevitably, the torque will overcome the grip, but it's fairly benign. You can play with it a little bit. It'd be interesting in the wet, and it's a big car. You need a bit of room if it gets out of shape, but when it does go, it comes back quite nicely. So you can't help but feel that you're in a VLN racer. You've got the cage in the mirror, you look down the long bonnet and you hear the V8. It does feel like a racer.
The GT Pro is one of those cars that you climb into and you kind of go, it's all a bit serious in here. I mean, it's a right monster of a car, this. Okay, it might only have a mere 577 bhp from its standard AMG GTR engine, but this Pro version has so much more trick stuff on its suspension, including rear wheel steering, and as a result it doesn't matter that What am I talking about? 577 bhp is not very much. It's loads. Listen to it. But the noises it makes, you know, everything it does is serious, yeah, because there's an immense amount of energy being propelled through the back wheels, and it sounds epic and naughty and mean and nasty, but it has a sense of humour to it, this car. It is very, very playful. I used to race in a series called the TVR Tuscan Challenge, and this thing slightly reminds me of one of those cars, because it's not a wrestling match, but it is all about managing what goes on at the rear axle.
And in the end, pretty much all of us agreed that overall the GT4 was the top boy this year. All but 2 judges rated it first overall, so it was a pretty conclusive victory, with strong showings from the A45, the AMG Pro and also the Jaguar Project 8. The mental Renault split opinions straight down the middle. Some of us loved it, others did not. And the Morgan? Well, most of us loved it and some of us hated it all at the same time, but not one of us climbed out of it wanting just a little bit more. But the best car in Spain and the best car at Ecoti this year was the GT4, and it won handsomely overall. So cheers for watching, and see you next year when we'll do it all over again.